We're now being recorded, so I'm following proper EU data protection policy. And you're, I guess, welcome to leave if you don't want to be recorded. So, nice to meet you. I'd like to go around and see who's who in the zoo, so I can get a face with your name. So,
I'm Abu Kadi.
Abudi, right? You said I could say that? Last time I remember that, I think.
Sean Fernandez.
Sean, nice to meet you. Yeah. You guys social distancing? Is that a rule or is that an option to like be away from each other?
It's an option.
Yeah, it's okay. You've tested him. He's good. All right. And your name, ma'am?
Mine?
Yeah, you.
Diana.
Anna?
Diana.
Diana. Hi, Diana. Thanks for coming. And you, sir?
So my name is Farouk, but you can call me Far.
Far?
Yeah, Far. It's like F-A-R-A.
Oh, far. Like far away?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay. What's your full name? Far.
It's Farouk.
Farouk?
Yeah.
Is that difficult for people to say? Farouk?
Kinda, yeah.
Okay, I can handle Farouk though, unless you like to be called Far. Yes, sir.
Benjamin.
Benjamin. Benjamin Burgle.
Yeah.
All right, you, sir.
Marek.
Marek. You look like a Marek.
I'm Masha.
Masha?
I'm Nikita.
Nikita?
Yeah.
Omar.
Omar?
Yeah.
And calling in, we have Yelizaveta. Do you go by like Eliza? What do I call you?
Yes, you can call me Lisa.
Lisa. Okay. Hi, Lisa. Can you put your camera on so I can see who you are? You should all be fully clothed because I warned you last time that I was going to do this. They all came in clothes in the class, so you'll see their picture later if you want. Welcome, Eliza. And Jonah. Jonah?
It's Yonna, but you can call me Jonah as well.
Yona.
Yonna.
Got it. I should be called Yef then, huh? Lasha. Is that you?
Yes, that's me.
Not your twin brother, right?
No.
How do I know it's you? You should hold up an like ID or something.
What was that?
Crystal.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. So I don't know. Were you supposed to come to class, or do you have an option? You could just call in if you wanted.
We have the option.
Yeah. Calvin.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going, Calvin?
Not too bad, not too bad. What was that?
You have a camera?
I do.
Can we see you?
Sure, why not? Oh, wait. Let's see how to do it.
Check the background first. Okay, there you go.
Should be all right.
Yeah, you got to cover up that window a little bit.
Yeah,
Background lighting is, everyone becomes like a studio expert when you do this crap, right? You got a lighting, the microphone.
Well, this is the first time I've turned on my camera since it's quarantine, so.
Really? Wow. There's a social guy. Shaw.
Hello.
There's that unmute button. How's it going?
Oh, all's well.
Good. Nice, clean room. Nice lighting.
And
I'll tell your mother. She'll be very proud of you. Zimena?
Hi.
Hi. Can I see you?
Yes.
Why you guys turn the cameras off? I want to keep seeing. You're like in the classroom. We want the full immersive experience. Oh, Arthur. Hey, dude, how's it going?
Hello. I'm good, thank you.
Great. Calvin, Lisa. Thanks for changing your name, Lisa. Now I'll remember that. Who did I miss? Extender? Is that right? Iskender. Iskender. Mute button. The little thing with a microphone with a red line through it. Going once, going twice. Can't make you do it. Damir.
Yep, here.
Iskender. Nice to see you.
Wait, sure. That's the mirror. Yeah.
Hello, Damir. Good to see you. You look like you're running like a DJ studio there.
Yeah, kind of.
You can play us some music later. And who just came in? Oh, Sasha. Welcome. It's been a long time. All right. So what should we do here? We have recording on. We have chat on. I think the first order of business is to just remind you that if you don't have whatever you need, that you tell me. If you can't hear me, if I'm speaking too quickly, if you don't understand my language, if you can't, I'm not responding to you on the screen. I do want you to keep your cameras on though. Calvin, he's a little camera shy, I think. Just so we stay engaged as much as possible. Because if I can't see, like you put your hand up, or whatever, I just want to make sure it's as though you're in the classroom. And I think this, have you guys had other classes?
Today?
Oh, this week?
Yes.
Where you come and it's a little speed bumpy, I guess, right? Different professors have different levels of technical competency, and students are maybe not so comfortable using the technologies or whatever. So, and that's actually part of this class is that, you know, even though they're like, you know, 7 billion people plus, that everyone talks about this complete global economy and opportunity, it's really one person by one person by one person. And we struggle regularly with trying to mass customize our offerings and how we engage with different communities. And by that, I mean people, and then how are we able to respond effectively and working with them. Okay, so how do I do this? I'm gonna share screens. I'm not sure the most effective way with you guys in the Zoom panel. I'm gonna do this. Play around with this a little bit for the first, well, I'll play around all semester probably, and hopefully I'll get better at it over time. Can you guys see the screen at home?
No, I don't really see it.
That's not very good, right? So I should maybe go into Zoom
for
and
competitive
screen
advantage.
share. Let me do that.
But more than that, no.
How's that?
Yes. Seems
Better?
Yep.
Okay. More if you want here. Whatever. I think when you speak up, then I can hear. Oh, there it goes. Ooh, look at that. Ah. Good. Okay, I got all of you. Okay, so you should see me. I have buttons that I can change the camera pointing at the screen here. So like I can do it this way. So you just tell me if you want to change what you can see. Maybe I'll write something on the board and you can't see it, and that's more helpful. I think the microphone is in this camera, and apparently it's very sensitive. So if you guys are talking, apparently it will like override me talking. So the people at home will hear you, not me, which maybe they'll prefer that, I don't know. But just know that that's the case. So are there any questions? Gentlemen? Yeah, okay. So let's jump into this thing. So welcome back to this stuff. The first thing I would just discuss or review is kind of what was that first week like? We said things are changing really fast. I gave you that history lesson. You were probably like, what class am I in? And then, what's the point of that? The point is that things are going really fast. And even if you're sitting in it and living in it right now, you have this little phone, that's totally cool computer. And you got this, laptop, tablet, hybrid, smartphone. You probably don't even talk on your smartphone. But I didn't even call it a smartphone, it's a computer. And because we have all these devices and all these different, they're ubiquitous, they're like everywhere. And even though whatever you could imagine things are like for you, you just have to rewind even 10 years back when you probably first started paying attention to all this stuff and then think that it's accelerating. And what was that thing? Who was that guy from Intel? One of the founders of Intel. He postulated something that was in the assessment that helps us understand why things are going so fast.
Every 18 months, the new computer appears. Yeah.
Okay. Kind of. It's every 18 to 24 months that the processing technology increases by 2 times in half the space. And you think to yourself like, okay, whatever, so what? I get a cheaper computer next year. Yeah, but then when you think about, well, what can't you do today? You will totally be able to do that tomorrow. That's this thing. The whole idea of this thing is that we have to understand basic computing technology, but just because it shows us that we're going to be able to do all kinds of things as we go forward. And this TED Talk, who got a chance to use 13 minutes of their life and watch that? Yeah? Diana?
Only me?
No, I'm just picking on you. I can only pick on one at a time. What did you get out of that?
The TED Talk was you or another one?
It doesn't matter. It was somebody. There's a little guy standing in front of a camera telling things.
Telling that everything is developing really quickly, and if you want to succeed, you need to really use more online information, customers, and everything online. If you want to work from home, if you want to achieve something, you can do it. All the money you need, all the customers, clients you need are there. And if you pay, like, for example, if you find a couple of months of your time and attention, you can really achieve big goals if you choose like one specific line of work and where to develop yourself.
So that last thing you said is the concept of being an expert. This is the Einstein slide, if I remember that. But everyone, all the experts are online, and you're exactly right, and you're the next expert. Some of you guys if you shared with me in the assessment, well, what is it that you're trying to get out of the class and what it is that you're doing? And a lot of you guys are already doing some pretty cool things. Some people are already doing e-commerce. Some people are already doing business intelligence, data mining. Some people are already doing targeted ad development. Some people are already doing application programming around the concept of artificial intelligence. This is related to data mining. And we'll talk more about this, but nothing, you limit yourself, and this is simply the point is not to take the negative position, but the positive position is whatever it is that you could possibly be interested in, there's the expert. Yeah, and then there's the clients are certainly online. And then somebody else tell me more about like what's the point in the talk about online? If you can remember some other, I don't know if you remember the buzzwords or just make up your own words. Or sorry, I don't want to ignore you guys, so you have to unmute and say something if you have something to offer. And turn your cameras back on. No hiding under your desk. You're in this class. Please.
I could add something.
Please add something.
So basically, you mentioned that you don't know what you don't know, but when you have access to the internet, you have access to the development, and all the services are available online. Only limit what you can get access to is your own imagination.
Yes.
I think in the video you mentioned three big things, which was info and services and money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is a thing that I would ask you. I don't know if you guys think about things this way already, but the reason that I spent like a month preparing that little 13 minutes, even though it's like, because it's like my whole life, I just like shoved it at 13 minutes. And I'm glad you said this, Sasha, because the idea of like all the information in the world is online. I mean, I don't want to sound like, you know, your grandparent or something like, oh, you can't believe what I was, I had to go to the library or, you know, something like that. But your generation, you're going into a global economy where all the old gray hair people have been running businesses all this time. And we only are accepting, often begrudgingly. We don't even like the internet. You know, we're like, you mean I got to go online? I got to sign on to I got to download another app on my phone? No, your parents are like, you know, I love this 10-year-old flip phone, you know, but you're going into this community of people and ways of thinking, and you have to break it. That's why some of you who've talked about like you want to start your own business, it's a great opportunity because it's much easier to start your own business and shove the old business out of business, help them retire early, rather than try to go work for them and get them to change. I teach an entrepreneurship class, and it's the same thing. It's called the S-curve of innovation. And for some reason, although we know why, it's hard to understand, organizations, General Motors, would go bankrupt before they would invest in an electronic car. And in fact, General Motors almost went bankrupt until they were forced, because of, this is 2008, 2009, they're going down, the federal government gives them a bunch of billions of dollars and says, hey, go spend a little bit more money on that e-car you're working on, not so aggressively. It's the idea that information, you guys have access to all the information in the world. And I like this model because it's all the information, because you need to know, as you said, what you don't know, and then you apply those to services. And we'll talk about this in this class a lot, especially starting in today's class. We talk about the concept of the value chain of activities. Who remember that guy? We'll just give him credit for it. Anyone know the name? Yeah, Michael Porter. Value chain of activities. You'll hear this from me over and over again, and then you're going to tell me about it over and over again, because it describes how do we organize business processes. And if I'm talking about adding value, then essentially that's a service. It's within an organization. It could be outside of an organization. And I'm just reconfiguring these things. I'm just, you know, who drives in here? Yeah, a couple drivers, yeah. Did you make your own car? Of course not, yeah. But it's only been in the last, 100 years or so that before you'd have your own horse, and then you took care of your own horse, or maybe you went to the blacksmith if you needed new shoes or little things like that. But this idea of specialization is part of how this economic engine has evolved to the point that everybody is an expert at something. And I'm going to ask you guys to think about, in the concept of this model, what are you good at and what is somebody else good at? Let them do the heavy lifting. If you were to open up an e-shop today, How many of you would go down to the corner and rent a space to store all of the products that you're going to sell? Maybe you're not answering because you don't know the answer, but I'm going to tell you, hopefully none of you, right? Because you don't, why would you go do that? Because if you're familiar with this company, little company called Amazon, and they will store your stuff for pennies. And it's fascinating. So these services, and that's part of this TED Talk on the services part, services for anything you can imagine is available. And we'll talk about all the different ways of how that kind of manifests itself in this modern society. But essentially it's, and I said it this way, I don't know if you remember this one, everything as a service. Sometimes you hear, and we'll talk about this in this class later, we'll talk about infrastructure as a service, or we talk about applications, which is kind of software as a service. Or we could talk about artificial intelligence as a service. Anything, storage, inventory management as a service. By the way, on applications, they also call that software as a service, SaaS model. If any of you have already been working, I think one of you was working with SAP. You? Yeah. I don't know if you use the online version of SAP or if it's SAP within the corporate, they call that on-prem. But we're going away from on-prem and we're going into everything's available in the cloud as a service. And even in the idea of money, this is just it's a critical leg of the game, but we can go and get money from anywhere now. I'm working, I didn't talk about it much, I don't know how much I'll talk about in the class, but I'm working on a startup right now, Keystone, and we're developing a all-in-one application for all of your personal productivity apps, your email, your contacts, your document management, your calendaring. How do you work together? And we're all over the globe getting money from different people. And we started in Silicon Valley, and it turns out that there's like plenty of money in Europe too. And there's plenty of money in India. And there's plenty of money anywhere on the planet. There's money from little old ladies who have retirement funds who want to play in the high-risk tech market. And then there are some kind of millionaires who are already in the tech space who are just looking at that next best thing and want to catch the wave. So you need to make sure that you're leveraging the same community or same platform, I will say, to go out and get money. And in the TED Talk, I talk about specifically crowdsourcing, funding, and those are different models that we use for sometimes smaller projects that require a bigger audience to get their attention. Here's the punchline though. The simple message is you can either understand the basics of how this works, or you become kind of victimized by it. And it's all related. Everything that we're talking about is related in that if we're globalizing, who are you competing with? Sean, what do you want to do when you leave university?
Start a problem for your own company. Definitely.
Start working for a company. Any particular kind of company?
Not really. Maybe in the field of human resource management, but not really sure which company as of yet.
Human resource management. That's a great topic. Has anyone been involved in HR work? Could you imagine? By the way, it's both a highly unrespected part of most organizations, and I learned later in my career, the most valuable. Because there's nothing more valuable than people as they work together, especially as we go from a production economy to a knowledge-based economy. If what is between people's ears, their brains, and their ability to add value to an organization is everything. That's the organization. Slack is worth billions. Somebody Google what Slack is worth today. Does anybody have an idea?
I think more after Corona than it was before.
It's in the 18 billion range. If you Google it, maybe they grew, maybe they went down, probably grew. Don't Google this, but guess the next one.
19 billion.
19 billion. Hey, they got a billion in the last week.
Oh no, that was June 20th. So maybe it's,
Don't Google it. How many employees do you think? $18 billion. How many employees do you think they got?
2,000.
Okay, that's not fair because that's a really good guess. It's like 1,600. Google General Motors and Google how many employees they have. I mean, this concept of, the point is how many resources does it take to generate what kind of market value that we see this right in front of us in real life, like, wow, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of value because the marketplace, they don't give a shit. They just say, here's $100 and next week I want it to be $200. And they say, what are you doing? And Slack saying, I'm helping people work together. And it's actually at this HR space, it's in fact their acronym, their trading symbol on the New York Stock Exchanges, WORK, W-O-R-K. They're clever guys. Stephen Butterfield, one of the founders, it's kind of a strange road that they got to Slack. They started off making video games. I don't know if you're familiar with Glitch. This was their product. And they found when they were developing this software game that they weren't working well together. And you're thinking, what? Why wouldn't you just sign up for like Google at Work or Microsoft Suite or some other bullshit product that's already out there? Why don't I just go use that? And wouldn't I be productive? I mean, they've been spending decades developing those platforms. Well, it turns out that, and this is back to this problem with old gray-haired people, when they do things too much, they forget why they were doing what they were doing, and they lose the point of collaboration. But to this point back in HR is a huge opportunity for organizations to spend a lot of energy to move away from traditional enterprise applications and move towards more employee-centric applications. And I hate to even use that word applications because it sounds so boring. It sounds like I'm in a hospital, especially with my mask on. Like it's so sterile, it doesn't mean anything. But an app can be exciting. I mean, you use apps all the time. You don't, and if you launch it and it behaves, you know, like you're in a hospital, then you probably delete it, or you probably don't delete it. Unfortunately, you probably just let it sit there because storage space is so cheap and you never run out and whatever. It's just running in the background. Later we'll talk about this, but it's collecting data, sending it off to the mothership and selling it to somebody else. But we have this constant interconnected universe that is now global. And here's the other part of this HR thing. I'm not going to ask you how much money you would expect to make, but I bet there's somebody in China that would do it a lot cheaper, right? Now, maybe that person in China knows English or not, or knows whatever the local language is for that operation that's looking to outsource that service. And you know it. I mean, here I am in the Czech Republic. I'm 11 years I live here now, and I don't speak a lick of Czech. How could it be that I could go 11 years and live in a distant country and speak only, well, some people would argue that I don't speak English very well, but I just speak English. We're converging around these norms and these shared languages, or not, or we have the technology to help us. You guys ever launch Google Translate? You get stuck in a conversation and you're not sure what the word is, and you hit Google Translate, and you actually can say, crazy. Hello, good afternoon. What the hell? Really? Any language, it's all in your phones. You can do this. I don't know if you haven't done it. Well, you don't probably need to. I only know one language, so I need to often. So I mean, I'm going to the store and I'm trying to buy. So this whole thing of where we had limitations historically, and this is where you can go back to this kind of human evolution. We are who we are, and it's taken a couple 100 million years to get here. After becoming some little thing out of the ocean, but now we can leverage technology to kind of speed up what our superpowers are, and this idea that you're leaving university and you're developing what's in your head to go into this marketplace. You've got to really be competitive. You have to really get above it, and that's this point of this the sentence. And then I'm going to get off this and start getting into more specific things. But this is the contextual. This is the world that you live in, and I live in it too. And I try not to. I'm old, but I try not to be old because I'm not dead yet. And so I want to keep innovating and coming up with the next thing until they bury me, kind of like Steve Jobs maybe. But you just keep going, right? Because that's what we're here for. Is to just. But this is the world we live in, and it's not always pretty, and we'll talk about that too in a bit. Here's my. By the way, I'm totally ignoring you guys at home. I know it. I can feel it. Raise your hand. Boy, the cameras are going off fast. You guys are so shy or slack, one or the other. Slack, do you know that term? It's funny that they call that company Slack. When I was your age, Slack meant you kind of always did minimum. You kind of just, me and my buddies who skateboard, we were kind of, they called them slackers. We kind of did as little as we possibly could do to get by. I've changed a little bit. But so Slack it is. So guys, feel free to speak up if you have questions. Here's the assessment review. Internet is built using computers. Big surprise. Computers are zeros and ones. You guys know this, and I know this is obvious, but I'm saying it again because everything we're talking about is nothing but a 0 and a 1, period. Unless we're talking about quantum computing. I warned you about this before, but we're not going to talk about it in this class. But basic computing technology, zeros and ones. It's just a matter of what's where. And we're actually going to talk a lot about this in the class in this next chapter too, because that's what's important for you to know as you're considering an e-commerce strategy, because whatever it is, we're going to focus later on this business process stuff. But if you don't know what's happening where, or if you don't think about it, then you might not put enough resources in that spot to support what it is that you're trying to do. Have you ever signed on to a site that crashed? You ever do like a sports site? Actually, it's very common in sports. Why? Because sports sites are like this. Nothing, 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 nothing. Game day, right? Hundreds of thousands or millions of people pounding away. The World Cup. The IT guy, gal, whoever, the first time they did this, what happened? He or she said, oh, well, we only have like a few thousand users, so I'll buy this little computer and put it in the corner and put our website on it, and then that'll be fine, right? Of course it is, until game day, and then, you've heard of a website crash because there's too much access. We have this in the bad way. It's called denial of service attacks, DOS, where you'll set up a whole bunch of computers to go after a particular server, and the server can only handle so much.
Yeah, Porsche control like during the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Yeah, they crashed for like 2 weeks or something.
It took 2 weeks to get one.
2 weeks. As I remember, Rohlik didn't work for like 2 weeks, and Porsche also.
We're going to talk, when we talk later, about these guys. And does anybody know who's IT here? What do we call, who's IT out there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, here. So UIT folks, what do we call the ability to handle increased capacity quickly?
No.
Uh-oh, have you taken any IT classes yet? That's not fair, right? Well, there are two words. One, it's called capacity planning, which is to know if you hit your enter key 5 times and you hit your enter key 5 times and you blah, 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 blah. I add it all up and I go 5 times, blah, 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 and that equals I need this much CPU power. That's called capacity planning. But then we have this other thing, and by the way, we'll talk about Amazon later. You know, Amazon does this other thing. Well, you saw the video, those of you who took the time to watch the TEDx, Amazon Web Services. Not only do they have these huge distribution centers and warehouses selling shit all over the world, they also have these huge data centers. And the data centers are built to supply infrastructure, technology infrastructure services. Everything computing as a service. There's a guy named, he's projected to be actually Jeff Bezos' replacement, Andy Jaffe, smart MF, one smart dude. And he built this business from scratch, and you go and we call this on demand computing. So so these people who had these sites, and this is crazy, Rolik is not like your local Potrovini. I mean, these guys, they got a real business. So I would go and knock on the door privately and say, who's the monkey that runs this place? Because you knew something, you want something to come, right? So you should prepare for that. And it's so that when you sign up for Amazon Web Services, you have an option of saying, when my user rates go up, when my capacity on my processors, storage, all those little bits and byte things that you and I would typically roll our eyes on and we go to sleep in the middle of the class, when we understand how those things work, we talk to our engineers and they plan for these things, but some things you can't plan for. And you go back to these people, Amazon Web Services, Google does the same thing, Microsoft does the same thing, IBM does the same thing, Oracle does the same thing. All of these guys have compute services on demand, such that when your user loads go up, your site doesn't go down. They just turn it up. And then as soon as the users calm down, maybe COVID goes away, or maybe not, but if it goes down, then my billing just goes down. For our startup company, we use Amazon Web Services. And I'll show you, maybe I'll show you later, if there's a time for it, how we're organized, how many of these and these and these we have. But I would have spent historically tens of thousands of dollars to build the infrastructure to have our engineering team in Bangalore, India, pounding away, building applications and testing them and doing different kind of workloads. I would historically spend tens of thousands. I probably would have spent by now maybe $300,000 or $400,000 on just stuff, on stuff. My bill every month, don't tell anybody, it's like $1,800. I have 86 servers, I think, because it goes up and down, 86 computers that these Indians are hacking away on, blah, 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 blah. And I spend $1,800. I don't know if that number means a lot to you, but 10 years ago, one of those servers would have cost me $1,800. And even today, with compute power and Moore's law, because they add more functionality to it, it still would cost me about $1,000 per server. So probably that's about an $86,000, and that's just the servers. That's not the storage or the network or the security guys, right? If I got $100,000 worth of computers, I got to hire some monkey with a gun to stand in front so somebody doesn't come in and steal it. But you go to an Amazon Web Services center, and they already hired the monkeys around with the guns. And actually not, they just have surveillance systems all over there. So as soon as anybody comes anywhere near, by the way, you can never see them, they're unmarked buildings, as you would expect, because You're not inviting anybody. There's nothing in there but computers going. Pop, 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 pop. And so nobody's going anywhere near this stuff. And it's secure. And it's highly reliable and available. I'm not going to, this stuff, I'm not going to get into any more detail, but or I think I will maybe in the class as we're talking about applying the technology, but this is the stuff that you just have to know. This other one, this open versus closed architectures. You missed this one a bit on the assessment.
I'm sorry, we cannot see the right part of the board. We can see only like the part with the
okay.
Amazon. Yes, much better. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thanks for speaking up, Arthur. Closed versus, I'm going to go to the at-home group. You guys tell me, give me an example of a open architecture. Give me an example of something you would have experience with as an open architected technology. Well, I'm going to give you IT guys so much shit if you can't answer these questions. Shaw. What kind of phone do you use, Shaw? Earth to Shaw. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Unmute. There you go. What kind of phone do you use?
Phone?
Phone.
Like iPhone.
You use an iPhone.
Yeah, and it closed software.
Right. Why is that?
Because it's intellectual property of Apple.
Exactly. It's the IP, the intellectual property of this little company in Northern California named Apple. And what is the operating system of that phone?
iOS.
iOS. So we know that it's iOS. Do you know what version it is?
Right now, you mean?
Yeah.
A 13.5.7, I guess.
Wow, look at that. Most people don't know that, but I'll go with it. Even if it's right or wrong, it doesn't matter. But you know that, so it's not just iOS, but then we have different versions, right? And I had this, I don't know if I had a test or not, but you have version and releases. You and I, who are thinking about applications and technology, we actually have to know this shit. Down to the device, we have to know. Why? Because if I'm creating services, applications as an example, or I'm providing a particular service, and in support of that service, I'm building an application, maybe it's a web-based application, or maybe it's a device-based application, I need to know what I'm running it on. And I need to make sure that my engineers have fully tested that application for that specific device. I'm sure you've gone to a website before and it just sits there. Nothing happens. But you're more clever than the average bear, so you don't sit there. What do?
Leave the site.
That's one option. What's another option? Most would do this. Let's say what is on that site is very important to me.
User interface, so it should be like a user-friendly, you mean?
I'm not talking about user-friendliness. I'm talking about just even being able to launch and see that web page.
Changing your browser, maybe.
Bingo.
Okay.
Bingo. Browser. So here yet we have another layer. So we're talking, this is about the device layer. And then we're talking about the software interface layer and a browser. And what kind of browsers do you guys use?
Safari.
Safari, yeah. What else? Chrome, yeah. Firefox.
Edge.
Oh, I was waiting for someone to say Explorer. I was going to say, oh, well, I knew there was somebody in the world that had used that. But Edge is not bad.
It's better than Explorer.
Who's tried Edge?
I tried.
Not bad, right?
Not great either.
Hey, give them, they're 20 years in the cave. They finally woke up. So the point here is that we have different kinds of architectures, and then we have different devices and different layers of software, and we have to think about those things. If you're not an iOS user, you're a
Android.
Yeah, right? And what do we call different versions of Android? IT people.
Code names like.
Hang on, Sean. No. Hold it. Pause. Who else is IT? Extender. Where did you go?
They are named after different kinds of sweets like candies, chocolates, and other stuff.
That's very cute. Yes, that's true. And we call them
builds.
SDK.
That's the layer below. That's too clever. So we have builds. Like this would be a build. That's a good word to know. I mean, it's a little esoteric because usually engineers in doing application development would talk about what build is that. I tested all these pieces together. That's this particular build, version, release. Anybody? Well, I don't want to make this a quiz show. It's a distribution. We have different distributions. Yeah, and then we do put cute names behind them for candies or whatever, but we have distributions. And the point that I'm making about this is that each distribution supports typically different platforms. Who's got an Android phone in here? What kind?
Note 10. Oh, I don't know the distribution actually.
No. What kind of phone?
Yeah, I told you Note 10. Samsung.
Oh, it's a Samsung.
Yeah.
Note 10. Who's got? What else do we have? iPhone?
I have.
Yeah.
iPhone?
Yeah.
iPhone? Yep. Hey, rich kids.
Am I the only Samsung person in here?
You're the only Samsung person in an Apple laptop, yeah.
Exactly.
So each brand typically has its own distribution. So some people would say that even if I can see the marketplace has X% of Apple iOS users and X% of Android users, and you know that the Android users are going crazy, right? Relative to Apple. I'm an Apple user. In fact, I have both for testing purposes, but Apple is proprietary. Anything that comes out on that phone, Apple either builds or certifies, and only those things that it builds or certifies get on that phone. And here's the trade-off. Android, the opportunity to develop and deliver capabilities and functionality on Android are much
Better than
larger.
iPhone.
Much better, yeah. I didn't mean to harass you guys about, having expensive phones, but it's more about it's a value proposition. That's why they're better. The Apple can get more money for an iPhone. It's a combination of the total available market. We'll talk about this in our marketing stuff. And what is the value proposition? And they spend a lot more energy and money making sure that everything works together. This is a Steve Jobs legacy. I'm not putting shit out there. I want to make sure that everything works and it all works together. So the amount of resources that it takes Apple and its business partners to make that ecosystem really work that well, it's very expensive. It's not so expensive, so the phones are as expensive as they are, but yet it's a different value proposition. On the other side, the flexibility with an open platform, anybody can go. You could go right now, if you're a technology person, you could go to GitHub. If you're familiar with that platform, all techies know what GitHub is. It's where all the shared open source software, it's not only, but it's the dominant one in the world. It's where all this software is that people work on collectively. And you can go and find different pieces of code that do different things. You're not going to go on the internet and find Microsoft Windows, right? Or Microsoft Word. That's a proprietary application. How about Open Office? Do you know this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could go online and you could go get and download the source code.
Stack Overflow, maybe.
Exactly. Stack Overflow, another great example. So you can go and get all of this stuff. In fact, for our startup, because we wanted to go fast, we took only open source stuff. Now we've created our own intellectual property, proprietary stuff to put the pieces together so that some other monkey couldn't just take the same pieces and parts and go copy what we were doing and, instantly replicate it. But essentially we're trying to take advantage of, and this is back to the services thing. We're going and getting everything we can that's available in the open market. This is why this is important to know the difference. Are you building on an open platform, or are you working in an open environment, or are you working in a proprietary environment? I'll say one more thing, and I wouldn't quiz you on this, but in proprietary, you'll hear in the business, people talk about lock-in technology. Anybody heard that before? Lock-in? If you launch an app to go do something, and often that capability is connected to another app where they're partners, like an example would be a contact. You share contacts with your friends, probably, either via WhatsApp or email or Messenger. Like if you have the contact in your phone and you want to share it with your friend, you just hit share, contact, and it sends that. It's called an ICS. If you looked at the file extension, like in an Excel file is XLSX, there's an extension to that contact file that is a standardized format so that other apps can read it. Well, if I developed an app that managed contacts, and I didn't want you to be sharing those contacts with someone who had a different competitive application, then I would fuck it up on purpose. I would change the format so that when they sent it to their friend, they would say, "Oh, I can't read it," and you go, "Oh, sorry, you have to download Jeff's app." So get out your Visa card and sign up for Jeff's app, and then you can get this contact. Now, you wouldn't do that for a contact, but you might do that if there was some more value added around whatever it is that you were trying to do. We call that lock-in technology. We find that over time that the technologists that own the proprietary stuff, we have enough market demand as users. We have enough options that we can say, no, you can't lock me in. I won't. If as soon as I run across lock-in technology, I'm not using your stuff anymore. I'm going to find a way to go do something else. We're like this as much as we can, just as a community of users. But know that on the other side of the economic model are people who have invested millions and millions of dollars to develop these technologies, and they will put in there special things that cause you to go back. Another example would be Microsoft Excel. If you ever use open office sheets and try to launch a special formula within the sheets, it'll often, for advanced formulas, it'll blow up because you don't have those formulas available in sheets. The last is the minor problems on, this is very small but important, BPS versus BPS. What's the difference between those two?
Bits and bytes per second.
Right, and what's the order of magnitude difference between those two?
1024.
What's a bit? How many, this is circular phraseology, how many bits are in a bit? One. That wasn't fair, right? How many bits are in a byte?
8.
That's what you meant, right? Yeah, and that's the difference. So when you see something with any technical specs, and sometimes people get caught, they'll like buy a phone service that has some bits per second or bytes per second. And of course it doesn't make a difference if it's like, relatively it's fast enough, right? It's 20 megabits per second or it's 20 megabytes per second. Although the difference between those two things is huge, 20 megabits per second is kind of all you need to do for a typical user watching a video. As our usage and what we use it for changes over time, like video conferencing and things like Zoom with multiple users, then our network capacity requirements go up. But generally speaking, we don't get caught by this one. But as you get into a capacity planning or on-demand situation, you would want to know the difference between this performance. Now, hertz are how we measure the speed of.
Frequency.
It's frequency, that's it, right? But it's measuring the speed of CPUs, processing, yeah. So you have gigahertz computers. It is frequency because every time you go pop, 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 that's how it can affect one transaction. Evaluate whether a bit is on or off and whether this bit is plus that bit or this bit minus whatever. The point is that that's how many transactions are going on in a second. So it's a gigahertz computer. That's a billion. I showed you the picture from the first day, right? Those ladies in the first mainframe computer, and those were switches that the women were, it's like, that's one. And you're talking about a gigahertz computer, you're doing a billion in a second. So, I mean, that's the order of magnitude of what's changed over the last 40 years. And that's how we measure that. Voice over IP. This is a little esoteric, but it's in e-commerce. If you have a phone system, like our Zoom is voice over IP. It's voice over IP, Internet Protocol, Internet. But you'll see people talk about VoIP. So I'm just shoving these words in that if you go into the business environment, you'll hear these. And I just wouldn't want you walking in and saying voltage over whatever that other silly one was. Client server, we'll talk about more of that stuff later. I should give you a break. And then categories of apps, we'll talk about this, but enterprise resource planning, a customer relationship management, supply chain management. People might say those words all out, like the first time they would say it, but then they would never, then it's ERP, CRM, and SCM. That's just, people just say it that way. So you just, after leaving this class or any technology class, you would certainly want to be able to just, if you heard that, then you'd know what they were talking about. Okay, let's take a break and we'll come back at what, 10 after, is that okay? All right. You guys at home, is this okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, let's get back to some. So here on this slide, I don't know if this escaped you or if you caught it. It is the introductory slide for the class, but I was kind of trying to get your attention with some of the basic technologies that you guys see now. Whether you see it and are aware of it now or not. But the first one is this concept of cloud computing. So everything is available as a service. All you need is an internet connection. And I talked about this in the TED Talk, and it is simply that. And we'll go over many examples of everything is available as a service. And I really think that these Amazon Web Services guys, AWS, are a great example. You go to one store, Google Suite. It used to be called Google for Work. Now it's Google Suite. Same thing. You go to Microsoft, and Microsoft, they have SharePoint, and they have Teams. You go to one company, and they have all these services. And all you do, it's like going to McDonald's. You just click on the menu, say, I want one of these. I want voice over IP, like in Google, that's Hangouts, you know, or in Facebook's, you have FaceTime. With different platforms, you have all these different key capabilities, and then you just go and you select which ones you want. Some of them are free, some of them are incorporated in the basic service, And often these are just an additional charge for each additional thing that you're getting. And then within, and we'll talk about this a lot more in the class, because we'll talk about like selling to consumers and selling to business. If I have an app, I might have different ways to monetize that engagement. I might make some of it free, and to tease my user, we call this a premium model, where I give them a free service, and then there are additional features. And if I want to turn those features on, then I'll have to get out my Visa card. But this is generally the concept of cloud computing gives us this tremendous power. I'll give you another example. I'll go ahead and jump over to this is our startup. I'll just give you an example of how let's see if this pops up. Oops, Keystone. Change my screen share. Screen share. So this is the site, and what I'm doing is I'm going to compare this cloud computing to what we're doing at Keystone. So Keystone, this is this introduction, it's intentionally a little ambiguous. It's not terribly informative, other than generally what's the positioning, because we're not trying to attract too much attention. We have many people that would consider us to be brutal competitors. They'd like to kill us before we got started. So, but here are all these services, too many standalone applications. Each of these different icons represents a different app. Maybe it's your email, maybe it's where you store your phones. And the concept is that you're going to pull it all together into one service and data all in one place. So here, so this is essentially what our product is. It's a single, super intuitive user interface that connects all of these different services. Now, we didn't go off and build all of these different services. Some we did, some we got from open platforms, OpenStack. From the engineers in Bangalore. I don't know if you're familiar with Bangalore in India, but it's kind of one of 3 primary technology hubs, kind of like Silicon Valley, where a lot of really, 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 really smart guys and gals are, who basically build all the things that the guys in Silicon Valley kind of imagine and think about. So we get all these different services all brought together by using and leveraging this cloud computing platform. And we're building everything in Amazon Web Services. Later, we'll talk about government. There's so many things you have to think about, and like, it's enough to like, well, why would you even do that? I mean, it's like starting a venture is a pain in the ass, and the reason that very few people do it, and the reason that most fail, is because it's complicated, and there are a lot of problems that you have along the way. But if you can coordinate all of these activities into the context of the different communities, to include, we'll talk in chapter 8, I think, 8 or 9, we talk about legal considerations and jurisdictions. How can you operate in there? When you have a business partner like Amazon Web Services who can help you isolate data sets and processing and networking in a physical geography, then that alleviates a problem that you otherwise would have to solve yourself. And this gets back to this idea of, am I going to build it myself? And how expensive is that? And then it's economically prohibitive, and I can't afford to do an international business if my value add is building this complicated, innovative thing, and my value add really is not building the infrastructure to run it on. And that this cloud computing gives me that option. So this is just more of the market positioning. You can read through this. You'll see that we've done in a very simple, this is all, if you want to jump on the beta version, you can apply if you like online. But you can see from that website the positioning, for those of you who might be interested in starting a venture, you can see how we're doing everything you saw in that TEDx video, and then you're seeing us push it into a very specific market segment. Okay, let me get back to screen sharing on this guy. 5G, the connectivity of everything to everybody, everywhere is critical. No, that doesn't give you COVID-19. And the idea of Internet of Things is that everything you have has the capability of being connected. Do you guys, smart home systems, anybody?
Smart lights.
Which one? You smart lights? And so how do you manipulate the lights?
Just basically use it with
Just from your phone app, huh? What platform are you using?
it's the IKEA hub.
It's
IKEA has its own hub.
It's got its own hub. So is it proprietary?
Yeah.
So only that app works with that device.
Exactly.
I'm going to challenge you. It probably isn't. That connection might be, but it probably has an open interface.
It can connect with Alexa, for example. As well.
Exactly. So some of you guys, have you played with this Alexa before? No? Maybe if we.
I have one at home as well.
Yeah.
I have one at home as well.
So that this, I don't know what, you connect this to that. This is, you guys have heard of these, of course, right? Alexa or Google Home, any of these devices. So these are hubs, and these are platforms. So they're developing these platforms, proprietary part of it. The interface is open, giving access to other devices like your light switch. So at home, won't work right now because I didn't plug it in, but but I can actually plug this in and I can turn my lights off at home. Because actually I have another one at home. So the one at home, so he, could be a she, he is connected over the internet to that other device, to my account. And in my account, I have all these smart devices. I'm a little nutty for these technology things. So I've got my lights. So I walk in and I say, Alexa, I'm home. And I've programmed it to, when I'm home, this particular configuration of lights turn on. And I said, Alexa, play nighttime music. And I have, Alexa knows that this particular kind of music I like at night. I don't like headbanging house music in the evening. So that's my weekend choice maybe, but not my evening. So whatever. So it customizes to you. And this is this concept of the Internet of Things. What are some other things that can be smart?
Everything.
Yeah, I know that's really the answer, but like, give me.
Personal mobility.
We have
Personal mobility? Like what? But be specific. Like what?
Unicycle, for example.
Could be unicycle, yeah? Why would you want a unicycle smart?
Sorry?
Why would you want a unicycle smart?
To drive you home.
Efficient. And yeah, it's like take it some places, like on your own.
Yeah, I'm differentiating.
Being programmed, for example, to drive certain routes.
To maybe go a particular route, right? A smart car, an autonomous, have any of you guys gotten into any of these self-driving cars? Teslas, anybody been in a Tesla?
We don't even have a car.
You don't have a car yet.
We don't have a driving
Maybe
license.
it's your dad or an uncle or a cousin or a friend or what. Anybody online?
Yeah, we have this heating system that, as you can see, it's pretty goddamn cold here in Finland. So we have this heating system that you can control through the phone. So for instance, if you want to go to the summer house, you can put the heating on the day before, and then the house is warm when you arrive.
Very smart, right? Because you don't want to keep it on all the time, of course, and you'd like it to be warm before you get there. Yeah, these little improvements. By the way, you know Nest, that product, Nest. This was one of the first home autonomous systems. Google bought them, but it's essentially, it's a thermostat on the wall. But it was a wicked smart thermostat. It actually looks, it looks like this. You could Google it, Google Nest. Google Nest. And basically you just told Nest what you wanted. And Nest learned that Monday through Friday, you got up at 7 o'clock and you wanted it to be whatever temperature, yeah? And then you went to work and you don't have to keep the house warm if it's the winter, yeah? While you're at work, unless you got a dog or something, whatever. And then, but then you're gonna come home at 6:30. And Nest learns your behavior, constantly learns your behavior. And then Nest starts to autonomously just make the climate and the environment as you would want it. You can override it because maybe Nest learned it the wrong way, but you're essentially, you have an assistant following you around. I mean, it's a little creepy, but I mean, that's kind of the world we live in now. It's a lot creepy. I'm going to show you how creepy it really is in a second. But looking on the positive side of this thing, these are ways that systems, platforms can capture pieces of information about us. How many times have you gotten up in the morning and wanted to have like milk or whatever, you know, or whatever you do in the morning, but and then it wasn't there, and you're like, F, you know, it's not there. But what if your refrigerator was a smart refrigerator and it knew what was in there? There's no reason a refrigerator doesn't know what's in it. Give me, you know this, you might have to think about it. How could a refrigerator figure out what's inside?
The refrigerator can order food itself for you and control the weight of how much food you have.
Yeah, but that's why I'm teasing you. What exactly censored? You know, you guys have checked yourselves out at Tesco, I suppose.
Maybe QR or like barcode.
It could be a barcode. It could be your QR code. It could be something you're probably not so familiar with. Any of you tried to steal something recently from a store? No?
Yes.
I don't know.
How did that go? That's why she's wearing black.
I don't know if it counts with the Amazon Go.
Exactly. Have you been? I went. Last time I was in New York, I went. Have you seen this Amazon Go store? No?
Yeah.
It was crazy. You guys, any of you go to Amazon Go store? If you get a chance, you gotta go. No pun intended. But you download the app. Probably you're already an Amazon customer, so what do they have about you?
Information?
You said it earlier.
Your card.
Everything,
Yeah,
right?
everything.
Everything. They have your credit cards, your bank, your address. They know everything about you. So all you do, it's like that sign on with Facebook button, right? Your life story goes right into their application. You don't even have to think about it. Which you think that's convenient until later we'll talk more about the bad side of this thing. But the creepy part is now they know everything about you, but whatever. So then you go into the store. Did you go to one?
Yeah, in Boston, the one just opened, and so you can just walk in, take everything, and they will charge your card. But I was so stressed.
Wait, let's pause. Let that sink in for a second. You walk into a store, and you leave. I swear to God, it's crazy, right? You think, should I put it in a bag or should I walk through No, you just take stuff and leave. And
you gotta keep the phone with me, right?
Yeah.
You have to have the phone with you.
Yeah, they check it.
But before you walk out that door, bing, there's your receipt. They did miss, because I was early, they did miss one of my fruit drinks. So, but whatever, because, I mean, what if they lost maybe 5% of their sales, you know? I mean, at the beginning, things are broken a little bit, yeah? But so what? How many employees did they have? I mean, in this particular store, they had employees all over monitoring because it was a test store. They just want to see if things were working. But eventually,
they would zero them.
Zero. It's wicked crazy. This is, by the way, production to knowledge-based economies. This is the Internet of Things. This is why we tell phones, we tell our car where we want to go. We sit. In the future, you don't even have to say anything. You guys watch The Matrix? Yeah, as crazy as that show is, the movie, if you haven't seen it, it's a great movie. We're essentially in our minds. I mean, I know I sound psychotic after a while, but it's just in our mind. We just think of something and it just appears, right? Neo. Neo's out of the club, where's the rabbit? Whatever, if you watch the movie. But this is what's in my refrigerator. My refrigerator knows what's in my refrigerator. If Amazon knows what's in its store and what I walked out of the store with, and the weight, you guys have shopped at Tesco with a beep, beep, beep. You put it over there and you said, inappropriate item detected, below. It's just picking on the weight of that particular thing. And when after you scan it, if the scale doesn't detect that weight, then you didn't do what you needed to do. Now we're going to look at that as like prehistoric as we get into this Amazon Go model. But this idea that we have all this technology, and because of Moore's law, better, faster, cheaper. It used to be that the RFID tags, when I was asking you if you had stolen anything recently, if you walk out the store and it goes, beep, 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 it's that little damn tag because the monkey clerk forgot to demagnetize it. So when you went through the wands and it sets off the alarm, that RFID tag used to cost, $2 a piece. We didn't use them that much, only if luxury goods, because it was worth spending $2 to keep somebody from stealing it. But now those RFID tags can be printed on your product. So when your product like this is a little cleanser pad. So when they printed the label, they would just print an RFID tag on here. And then forever, for fractions of pennies, this thing is now detectable. Now, who cares, right? Well, I care if this is the last one in my house. And this is like really, maybe it's my drugs that I take every morning or whatever, And if it's the last drug I'm taking and my cabinet detects that there are none left, it automatically calls in the future Amazon, because they'll be the only buddy distributing anything for any of us. And Amazon the little drone will come over to my house, and I'll probably have a little thing in the ceiling later, and it just drops my order into that little thing, and it just goes into my room. I mean, there's no this idea of everything being autonomous is very close. We're very close. We've seen the drones already, that they could drop that at my front door. And then they're coming up with clever ways. I'm talking about something that's quite futuristic, right? Because we don't have an infrastructure in my flat where I have a hole where I can drop things and it goes into my room. So we come up with clever things like my smart car. I can tell my smart car that when a smart drone comes, open the back hatch, let the smart drone put my products in the back of my car, in the front of my house, close the door, and they leave. I don't know if you're familiar with Amazon's got a system for your door. For Amazon Prime customers in the United States, they're still testing it out, but an Amazon delivery person can come, and then they have a code, a one-time code for that particular delivery that they can open the door, drop off, and then leave. It includes a camera system for security so that the Amazon employee doesn't go in and make themselves at home and other things like that. But this idea that everything is everywhere, we're clearly there. Now this is, I wanted to share what I read in the review on what you expect out of this class. This is where you're coming from, so I've kind of segmented you a little bit. Some of you are IT. I'm going to make a comment about the IT people. You IT folks, have a huge opportunity. And this is why, especially if you're here in a business program. I think I told you I have my undergraduate degree in marketing and finance, and then I went to go work for IBM right out of college. But even when I was in college, I did 2 internships with IBM, product development, product testing. And I found that when I left, even then, there was a very limited supply of people who had both business and technology. And so you technology people, I think you'll find there's a huge opportunity, and they pay a lot of money for people who can be in the middle. There are people that are really great at business, and they understand business really well, and people who are really good at technology. But we need somebody that sits in the middle. If I'm talking about delivering a new product or service, and I need it to run on a platform that can scale quickly, that is operating in multiple environments, that supports all the different devices that my customers are using, well, I need the person who has that skill who sits in the middle. Typically, they call them an architect, and usually engineers with subject matter expertise in different areas, whether it be systems or storage or networking or application development. They'll work with an architect, but that IT person that sits in the middle it's a huge opportunity. Some of you just had general business interests, and that was kind of related to e-commerce specifically, but I hopefully when I talk and introduce this next chapter, you'll see that it's that general business modeling, and I go back to Michael Porter, that really gives us direction as to where we should be spending our attention as to where we would invest in e-commerce. And even though I mean, this is my specialty, not everything is e-commerce. I mean, I think this class is a good example of where we're in a hybrid environment where some people are at home, online, we can go online. But I think they did a survey of you guys, and about 80% of you said you prefer to be in a classroom. And I think that is a huge litmus test, especially the people who run the school and schools generally, because they're all kind of afraid. They thought some instructor in China or in India was going to kick their ass by putting classes online, or Stanford or MIT, which they do. I don't know if you've ever seen those classes, but they're awesome and free. But you can go and get an education. You can go and see it, but without that human interaction to give maybe some direction as to, well, watch these 3 videos, and then come back and let's talk about them. That human interaction cannot be replaced. Not yet, maybe never, but certainly there's no, in today's model, there's no e-commerce for everything, but we have to think about it in complementary nature. And I think that's where the general business people will get benefit from that. And of course, in this class, we'll have e-commerce specific technologies and strategies. And for those of you who are not sure, which were more than 1, more than 2, I would suggest that you just think about what is interesting to you. And aside from all of this, and I think I said it in the TED Talk, the most important thing is to do whatever you love. And if you do that, and you have this kind of a foundational knowledge as well as the general education that you're getting at the university, then you can go do anything if that's what you love. So just find some. So if you're still not sure, or even if you think you're sure, and you get into it and you find, ooh, I really don't like that, just at least from your experiences, keep modifying your position as to, well, what is it that I'm going to go do, and spending your time with things that are interesting. All of you said A's and B's. One said a C, but that's all right. And the scores that I got from the assessment were also much higher. You took twice as long as most classes, so maybe you were Googling the answers mostly. I don't think so, because of the way that they're organized. I think you just generally took longer. What you want out of the class are specific examples of how to apply it in selling techniques. You're going to get that. And to starting and running your own businesses, you're going to get that. If you want to go deeper on that one, we have an entrepreneurship and small business management class here. If you're in the ESC program, they offer it. So just ask them when they're teaching it next. That's the other class that I teach. And where I go into that more. I'll tease some of that in this class. I'll talk about some of it, but not in total detail. You do not want to learn about coding and talking about concepts you would never apply. You're guaranteed not to get either of those two things from me because one, I don't code. I don't code well. I can code some things. And I've never bothered to talk about anything that I didn't use myself again and again and again. So just as my own experience of applying, and I'm mostly a business person. I teach for fun. All right, Slack. Who had used Slack before? Yeah, in what context?
Well, business communication.
Working for a company?
Yeah,
or
yeah, just like an internship. So.
Who were you working for?
Daytrip. It's like a company where they, let's say there's customers who.
Pause 1 second. Who knows Daytrip? It's a great idea. You do as well? Are you guys buddies outside of class?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Daytrip, you guys? You heard of Daytrip? Actually, a really cool startup. Now go explain it.
Well, it's pretty much like the customers, they come either from, usually they're targeted from America, like the people from America, when they come to Europe, they give, instead of, let's say, the people they're getting a taxi and just getting from point A to point B, Daytrip does that. They pretty much take that to an experience. So instead of just going from point A to point B, they get a car, and let's say if there's something interesting, some interesting places where you have in between the point A and point B, you go and visit them. So you have the full experience of the country or of the city or wherever it is.
Right, right. So how did you guys use Slack in that? How did you use the team use Slack?
It was like,
okay.
It was distributed to different channels. Because there was like a general channel. It's like you split it for general content. It's like general channel, like a random channel that was random, like lunches or whatever.
Right.
And then it was departments. So it was like business development. There was like marketing and different kind of. So you could use like inspirations channel as well. Or so you have it kind of divided and systematically created. So you know where you can, which one you should check and which one you don't have to. So.
Right, right, from experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you guys had I want you guys to keep, there are two reasons I'm using Slack. One is just the practical reason. The other is I want you to think about, as you're going through this, how does it work and why would we use it? And then what's bad about it? Nothing's great. What did you find out using it, when you were using it? What was very frustrating about it?
For me, when I first saw it, it was like, I was just thinking another thing I have to do that does only one thing and it does it no better than other things.
Right, right.
It's useless to me, like, was useless to me for a reason that an additional app that didn't even have to be additional.
Right, right. And how many months, are you still there?
No.
How many months were you there?
Almost a year.
Oh, a long time. So I'm going to guess that you grew to like it somewhat, or no? I shouldn't even.
Not really.
Not really, huh?
Not really.
Yeah, just a waste. It was yet another stupid app.
It was better than I firstly thought it was, but I still didn't like it as much because, I don't know, I had ideas it could do something better than just the one thing.
Like
you could have, I don't know, like the contact info of other people. You could have some access to, I don't know, you can have like a storage there or something.
Excuse me, if it did more things, then it would be a better app to go to.
Yeah, either, or if it did the one specific thing better than, I don't know, let's say any other communication media.
Mm-hmm. Any of you guys have experiences with Slack?
Yes.
You online people?
Yes.
Yes. I was using it for like almost 1 year already, but not like user, but software tester, and I know that they have big problems in future versions, like bugs running around.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Sorry?
Can you speak up a little bit, please?
Oh yeah, sure. I was using it for 1 year already as a software engineer, and we know like they have more than 127 existing bugs, and team works to fix the bugs. But in general, Slack is like the web version is more stable than the apps they have.
Right. Okay, software development, I'm not going to go down that path, but there are many software development platforms that are quite effective. I mean, we do not use Slack for software development at all. I couldn't imagine doing that. That would be a disaster. So I'm not passing judgment on how you guys use that, but there are very specific software development management apps that I think give the unique life cycle of application development, testing methodologies much more effective than Slack. Slack's more of a general purpose collaboration system. Arthur, you said you used it also?
Yes, I used it twice. I mean, like in 2 cases. So the first one was also for working with SAP. We had a chat there for our department because it was much more comfortable just because of the segmentation in Slack. So we have like different questions for each segment.
You mean channel?
Yeah, I mean channel, yeah. And secondly, I use it for, also I was studying Python. And for the courses of Python, also we had the Slack channel where all the like one channel was per one chapter. Like it was also the segmentation of work, basically. So, and I found it very useful in such cases. But of course, if you want to contact with your friends, there are much better apps for that.
Excuse me, you said, oh, so you did not find it useful for the Python training?
I found it useful.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, like, give me a feature that helped you guys communicate using Slack. I
said it before, like many channels where you can discuss different questions. Like you have the segmentation of the work.
So simply the channel structure of topics.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Any other examples?
Well, I just use it to talk with my boss when I was doing my internship, but like nothing like special.
I don't know, talking with your boss is pretty special.
Yeah, but I just like communicate just with him, like if we were talking in WhatsApp or something. And also we used it in school when we were doing a business project. Not school, sorry. In my university last semester, we did a business project. So yeah, to communicate with everyone, with the class, we used Slack.
Did you find it useful? You generally liked it or generally didn't like it?
It's okay. I mean, I didn't find it like a lot of use. Just to communicate, like we could also use like another system or like app to do that.
Right. Hi, Mom. So this is a good exercise, this conversation we're having, and you should, this class is like yin and yang. It's a, how does that go? Like that?
How did you call it?
Yin yang. You know, it's like this like it's both sides of something. Every time we look at these applications and I'm asking you about them, I don't give a shit about how much you care about Slack or not. What I want you to think about, of course I do actually, but what I want you to think about is both sides of this thing. What if you're the Slack guy? What if you're Stephen Butterfield and you came up with this idea and you have this market opportunity? You have 7 billion people on the planet. Roughly half of the people are connected to the internet. Roughly 20% of the people are doing professional jobs that could benefit from such a thing. So you do this total available market, total serviceable market. You break it down to segmentation. You say, okay, this is my target audience. And then you sit around with people like you. And you said, hey, I just spent 10, 20, $30 million developing this application because I thought it would be really cool. And I thought there was a niche in the market. There was a need or a want. Remember that from the marketing class? Need or a want. I think somebody would pay to have yet another friggin' app, you know? So, and that's the world he lives in. There are thousands of apps, and he's got to break through all the noise and say, no, 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 this one, you really want this one. And you're like, he is so typical. No, you have app fatigue. I have all the compute power in the world, I don't want to learn another friggin' app. Get on WhatsApp. You know, what's happening, you know? You can send me a file, we can chat, I can search my history, I can share contacts. WhatsApp is actually remarkably simple and powerful. So the price trade-off of learning something new and what benefit you get from that is huge, the ratio of those things. Slack, I don't know when you downloaded it, when you first saw it, you're like, most people have this reaction. It's yet another fucking app. And then, but once they start using it, if they have an open mind a little bit, you'll find that yet this other friggin' app is actually, it's just powerful enough. That's why they're worth $18 billion. If it weren't, none of us would have heard of Slack. It's just powerful enough and gives you enough added value that, in fact, you're going to use it. So this is the yin yang part. So you have to think when you're looking at that app, not this app, when you're thinking about the app that you're thinking about, whatever it is, maybe it's related to your project, maybe not, you have to think, what is the added value of this thing that I'm creating? And in fact, will it break through the noise so that somebody would be interested in using it? If you go back to our startup right now, this is one of the biggest dilemmas we have. We're trying to create something that is completely disruptive. It's going to replace many of the things you're already using, but we have to create it in a way that you almost don't even notice. The design point is that you download this, it automatically connects to all your existing apps, it automatically sucks all the data, you have total control of the data, whether it's geographically, privately, you want to share it, whatever. You have all of that power. We're not taking the Google or Facebook approach. It's not our data, it's your data. And the user interfaces, as much as possible, will match however you're using something today. We don't want you, we're not ego. I'm not Steve Jobs. You have to learn my iPhone interface. It's like, screw that. I just want you to use the damn thing. I have no, and I know that I have, through my own user testing experiences, that I have these barriers of entry in terms of usability that and by the way, that's part of lock-in technology. I don't know if who's an Apple user, Apple laptop, MacBook? Yeah? You close a browser in Safari on what side, right or left side? Where's the X?
Left side.
Yeah, and on Chrome, it's what side?
Right.
Bastards. You know, this is a completely intentional mistake. It's not a mistake. Because as soon as you download Chrome, if you're a Safari user and you go to the wrong side, and by the way, that's one little thing. They just messing with you all right and left. So that by the end of the day, you're like, fuck it, I'm not spending any more time on this. And so I want you to be thinking about that as you're going through Slack. By the way, you talk about Slack and additional services. Did you guys use Google Drive connectors?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is this incremental services that they run APIs, application programming interfaces. You make the connection so that all you have to do is click on it. The problem is that that interface is yet different than your Google Drive interface. And then you end up down that path of, okay, this is really something different. At least I didn't have to copy all my data over, but I still have this usability challenge. And this is what I'm trying to get you to think about as you're walking through Slack. I find it very, I should say, relatively speaking, it's intuitive. You can download it and start using it pretty easily. And you don't have to use the advanced features. You don't have to use the partner apps, whether it's because they do an Asana interface and many, many other apps, customized apps for HR or for SAP. All these exist, but just as a basic service, it's pretty good. And I just want you to kind of go through that and use that, and then think separately on the side, how as a user do I behave? The other thing I would point out is, as I'm asking you guys, well, what do you think about using it? And you use these general terms. As a tester, and I forget who in the first call someone had some experiences with UI and UX. I forgot who that was, but
I mentioned it, but
yeah. Yeah, so I've worked in usability labs where you get on the other side of a one-way mirror, and then they're in there messing around with the computers, and then you're watching them, and you're watching what are they doing. And now we've got very sophisticated systems that I've been a user for. I've gone into it was a LinkedIn lab in Northern California, and they had cameras all over me, and they could monitor through what I was looking at, what my sensors, they knew what I was looking at on the screen. Of course, they were managing and seeing exactly where my mouse pointer was, and then they had me connected to a heart monitor, and it knew what my temperature was. So they knew if I was getting excited, if I couldn't solve some problem or understand something about the application. It's like crazy, huh? But this is, so here I am just asking you, so how did you like it? You know, talk about trying to solve something with a sledgehammer. How did you like it? What am I gonna, it's an open-ended question, and I'm gonna get some feedback, but really specifically, if I know exactly how you use that app, then I can actually see where you're running into operationally and tactically, where you're running into problems and usability issues. Okay, I want to show you, I want to also, during this class, because I don't know that you have another class that would give you the opportunity to answer some questions that are, I mean, they call it like the elephant in the room. You know, we have this thing called eCommerce, and we have this thing called social media. We've got some issues around media and data privacy issues that exist. And it's in one of the chapters, but this book was written, 10 years ago or whatever, but so it's not as hot as it is right now. I think it's a very important topic today. It's not in the curriculum itself, but we have to be very awake and vigilant as human beings today. The cyborgs, I don't want to sound like some creepy, conspiracy theorist that, Arnold Schwarzenegger and, Terminator 2 is coming in. But yet there is a reality that these guys have so much power today in just a few hands. And we have, and you don't listen to me. We can go to experts who've been watching this, and also through history can kind of contextualize how big is this problem and how unique is this problem? Haven't we always had this problem? Or haven't we always been in this circumstance? And the answer in many cases is not. We've never had so many devices collecting so much information about us And at the same time, we have no idea. We simply have no idea of the vast quantities of data. And, you know, you might say, who gives a shit? You know, they have my contact database. So what? They can read my emails. So what? They know where I am. You know, I'm not a bank robber. So what? You know, but it's a surprising thing to us, or maybe it's not surprising. Did you guys either read or see any of these? Do you see the book, you guys online? Or did you read or watch this movie, The Great Hack? Anybody?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Who said that? Yes, online.
Me,
Yeah,
Arthur.
Lasha? What did you think?
Yes.
Well, I thought that it was too, the world today is too fucked up.
So what, give us, maybe I'll do it. So the Great Hack is essentially the story about Cambridge Analytica. You guys have heard that at least, right? So if you haven't seen the trailer to the movie, the link, and this the links to these are in the slide. So, and they're on e-learning now, so you could download the PowerPoint and just click on the link so you go directly to it. But so it's a story about like this company, this little company of computer experts, data experts, who learned and understood the data that exists in social networking platforms, especially Facebook, and they learned that they could apply machine learning and artificial intelligence to affect how you think and behave. So go back, Lasha, if you would. So that's the setting. And you said your reaction was?
Actually, it was very frightening, kind of, to be honest. When you see the way they control us, each and every one of us, through social media, through marketing, through advertising, that's very frightening. Because a few people who have control over this, they have control over they control everything.
Yeah. How can it be in the United States that half of the population think Trump is the second coming of Jesus and think that wearing a mask is stupid and it might increase the probability of you getting COVID? Well, you've seen the numbers. They're climbing into 200,000 dead people in the United States. I don't know who my people are. They've completely lost their mind. Unfortunately, when you have 3 billion people on Facebook, and this gets back to this book, this Harari book, that I think that's also very important to read, The Evolution of Man, and other books that talk about addiction and dopamine and serotonin, if you're familiar with some biology, that you guys like sugary things, right? You like McDonald's. There's a reason you like McDonald's. It's this desire to have this effect. We have taken that times 1,000 and applied it to technology. You can't put your phone down. Look at you in the back. You can't. I mean, I can berate you all day long and tell you, put your phone down. It's a 3-hour class. Come on, you're here for education. You paid your bill, or your parents paid whatever. You know, just pay attention, right? You're in the class. But you can't, and I can't fight you. I'm not a superpower. I don't have, unless I gave you a drug that would affect your physical desire to be happy in the moment. This is dopamine, yeah? And it's different, by the way. If you go home and read something about this, dopamine, serotonin, like if you're in a loving relationship, then the serotonin levels go up. But as you know, in any relationship, you're getting in a fight half the time anyways, right? So that dopamine is low when you're in a fight, right? But if you survive the fight and you're in a relationship, then serotonin goes up. When you get your degree, serotonin goes up. People who have very happy lives have very high levels of serotonin, but it takes longer to get that result based on their investment of time and fulfillment, whatever. It's a combination of psychology and biology together. And you think, we're in an e-commerce class, what the hell are you talking about? They've taken this to this now. This is why we pick up our phone, all that click, 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 click. In fact, in the Zucked, Roger McNamee says, in the beginning, he says, I want you to, he's just talking to the audience, he says, I want you to tell me, when do you first look at your phone? When you get up in the morning or when you're going pee? Because there was only two answers in the morning. Yeah, he says either it's right the first thing or when you go to the bathroom and it's a joke, right? But it's not a joke because we are now hooked on this. The guys on the other side of the screen know that that's how we are, and this Cambridge Analytica, and I don't think they're really smart, but I don't think that they're geniuses. But they stumbled on something that in fact had a very amazing reaction. In fact, they started off in some kind of banana republic countries, not in the United States or England, which is primarily what the story's about because it affected the 2016 election and the Brexit election, is that they found that if and this is where before you think the collection of data is innocuous, it's like, so what? It doesn't matter about all those things. But if I know all of the websites that you go to, if I know all of the friends that you have, if I know the behavior or the comments from other people that causes you to react a particular way, now I can use machine learning and spin it back around and say, boop, here's a story from the Washington Post that you need to read. And that Washington Post story is going to light me up because it's about Trump saying something else stupid and lying about something. That's what they send me all the time. And I know they're manipulating my brain. And I'm eating it up because I hate the guy. So they feed me more. It shoves me over to the side. But now I have some friends, sadly, from high school who are Trump fans. And they're getting fed a whole different stack of news. Fox News, where Trump's the super guy. Trump tells China, go pound sand. Trump gets the Israelis and the, I don't know, I forgot the country that they just got a...
United Arab Emirates.
Yeah, UAE, right? They just negotiated a deal. Yeah, so they're talking about all the great things that the economy continues to grow. These are facts. That's the world that my Trump friends see, and I see this world. And then I get online and I say, who are you guys? You Trump fans, you're the stupidest people on the planet. And they're looking at this, you left-wing, liberal, socialist, commie, and so this is what this movie is about. The point here is not the blah, blah, blah about the politics, but it's here is how the data is being used to manipulate large communities of people, and we don't get to see what those algorithms are. We don't get to see the machine learning or the artificial intelligence behind the scene, yet we're being manipulated like marionettes. I know it sounds freaky and crazy. Watch the movie. And here's just a collection. This is another one that's just out, the social dilemma. This is yet more about the black box behind what are these social media platforms and how they affect us. In this class, I'm not here to talk and scare the shit out of you. I'm just taking a little bit of side time to say, we as humans have to be aware of what's going on the side. It's because it's not the side, it's actually the center stage of what's happening. And then as we implement these things, we have to go out in an ethical manner and do things properly. Do things, do no harm, which is what Google started off. I don't know if you remember, but Sergey and Larry started Google. That was their company motto. I don't know if you read that anywhere, do no harm. Sadly, when they brought in the new CEO and they revamped their business strategy, do no harm disappeared. I don't think that they meant to therefore do harm, but it didn't, their business practices haven't subsequently delivered on that as a principal promise. This is the woman that wrote this book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. This is the idea that data is the new oil, and we give companies all of our data. We don't even think about it or know it, but that we do, because all the apps on our phones are constantly collecting location data, what we're buying, the history of our transactions, the history of our websites that we visit, who we're communicating with, trying to constantly market segment down to customization of one. And she talks about essentially how this has become the backbone of the digital world. The last thing I would say is to just stay engaged. You know, those of us who don't, I mean, I have more time than most to be involved in things like this. But if you don't, then we have the organizations like EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Have you heard of these guys before? They're kind of like the Greenpeace of the digital world. So they collect a lot of money, like Greenpeace, and they get out there in their boats and their harpoons, and they chase the big ships, you know, from killing the whales. And so if we can't do it ourselves, then we need to make sure that we give our proxy to people who can be looking out for these things. Like take 10 minutes before I kill you guys, and then I'll do a small overview of this chapter. So 20 after, come back.
He's coming back. Come at the end of the month.
Okay, we're gonna keep going here. We have to finish the classes at 15 till 6. So give the next guys a chance to get set up. So I'll just flip through these slides. I have two sets of slides. I have the slides that usually have current events and whatever, whether it's project related. Then I have another set of slides that maybe you saw in e-learning online that has the full set that they gave me with the book. So it's got everything. So it's kind of, if you flip through the slides from the book, even though it's like 60 or 70 slides, it's like speed reading. But if they're like 50 pages, I think, in a chapter in the book, I don't know if it's much different, but the slides, of course, big letters, and it summarizes what the topics are. But however it works for you, you have to read the book. You don't have to read everything in the book. And if you stay on Slack, I think you'll find that I'll give you like cheat sheet. I'll help you through this class so you don't have to do so much. Or the things that you'll have to do, if I tell you this is why you're doing this, it'll make more sense and it'll probably come to you faster. So for your own benefit, stay on Slack. I didn't ask you, I meant to ask you if you had downloaded the client. The client is the software that you would put on your computer or whether it's your laptop or your smartphone, and then you can just get alerts. You can turn it to notifications off, go to sleep, so you don't get harassed in the middle of the night, but if you see their notifications, you don't have to, it's not like crack. I mean, you don't have to like jump on the notification right away, but when you get a chance, just go and look at it, and then you can stay current. I actually, this is what I find to be the biggest added value in Slack. It's like WhatsApp. It's just a place where you're having a conversation. And like all technology, and I think we all have to learn this in our own way, we have to learn how to keep it away from us so that we can go on and live our lives. and maybe it's just keeping some applications away so that we can look at other applications, whatever our life is. But you can't, if you're constantly being bombarded, then that's when you go crazy. So here we are in the next chapter. And then in this chapter, it's kind of a catch-all, and a lot of it I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to go over too much of it, but about that first wave versus the second wave. The point simply is that we made a ton of mistakes. We blew through billions of dollars. I was there. It was crazy. Bentleys and Aston Martins and not so many Rolls Royces, but some, and Teslas, and I'm up and down Highway 101 in Northern California, vroom, 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 and money, people just throwing money out of their car because they had, it was crazy. It was like, it was crazy. A lot of drugs too, but so what's happening? All the money, this hundreds of billions of dollars sitting around the world, saw this shiny thing and said, hey, I don't know anything about it, but it looks pretty good. It's stupid, right? But it ends up that it's worth every bit of the money they spent on it. But the way that we did that in 1.0 was stupid in a lot of ways. And we learned through those. And one of them is simply that if you build it, they won't come, maybe. Just because you make something that you think is like really clever, if it doesn't either provide value in the form of a satisfying a need or a want, going back to your marketing classes, then they're not doing it. Right? There are times that people buy like Elmo dolls, and you'd be like, why would somebody buy an Elmo doll? Well, it's a cuddly little thing and kids like it and they want their kids to stop screaming, so they go buy that doll. So you don't necessarily see in some things some particular economic benefit, like, oh, I'm going to buy that computer, or I'm buying this because it saves me 15 minutes when I go home so I don't have to run around and turn the lights on, or it's not simply not always, it's often not that economical in terms of the structure of the why I'm doing something, but yet still there needs to be the benefit. And then we learn that, and then we move that into the second generation, which is this revenue model. And there are a whole bunch of slides, I'll go through some details, but the idea is I find out where the money is, who has the money, and what do they want for that money. And then I build something and I back up into that to determine what my product or service is. So here we go. And I've talked about this before, and I'll keep talking about it, the modeling of value chain of activities to help me organize exactly and explicitly what it is that I'm doing. Where am I providing value? What's better for me to build versus what is better for me to outsource and partner with somebody else to deliver that product and service? And you guys know what your SWOT is, your strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then the last one is international nature. That just because something plays in the United States doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play in Europe, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play in Nigeria or in India, or even in this particular region within India. We talked about this in the first class, just you guys already know this, B2C, business to consumer. So this is like Tesco selling to you or I, and maybe having home delivery, or even having a website where I can go online and see what products are and which ones I might want to buy, or Alza is a good B2C here. We have B2B. You guys don't have so many experiences with B2B unless you've worked somewhere, but SAP,
Macro.
Pardon? Macro, where I'm selling products to businesses. We'll go through some later in the class, specific examples of them. So what are the unique characteristics? And we have business to government. You can imagine that's a pretty big community, big market segment within e-commerce. And I alluded to this, but this is the pretty picture that comes with it. This is this business to business, electronics, business to consumer, and this is business process. This is why Slack. So somebody in this monkey jump determined that if they plug Slack into a little piece of this, I mean, this is totally universal, so it's every activity within a business enterprise. And I'll go ahead and draw this picture up of Porter's value chain again. And we call this, I'll just do this for the rest of the class, okay? Value chain of activities, Porter's value chain of activities. And then I break up the activities that represent the business that delivers a product or service to a customer so that they can get their money. This is not rocket science. It's not complicated. How you do this is complicated, but what's the first thing I typically, I'm doing some research and development, yeah? And probably from research and development, I have manufacturing and operations. And then I probably have from operations and manufacturing, I have to have sales and distribution. By the way, many people that study Porter, they would break this up differently in different areas, but this is generally how it's organized: sales, distribution, and then customer service and ongoing support. These are primary activities. Because there's a very specific research and development. I'm looking, by the way, this is obviously, I missed marketing here, but marketing influences, of course, research and development. But so research and development, I'm going to develop my product. I have manufacturing and operations. I have to build it. And then I have sales and distribution. I have to get it out to the marketplace. And then I have some methodology for customer service. This same model works for products or services. You just have to think about them a little differently. Like even, Benjamin, if you were thinking about like the service of, well, Uber or this other niche play where I have drivers and not just drivers, but drivers with skills, because they have to also be a bit like tour guides, that they understand the region. So how is that built into my model where I'm able to use the supply chain management? Remember that one? So in manufacturing and operations, I would use supply chain management methodologies to get the resources that would be able to marry with my customers who wanted a trip from, for example, here to Dresden on Friday afternoon from 2 to 4 o'clock. So I still have to use that. I'm just using that as an example. There's a model for establishing systems that I would use to manage my process. But not to be lost, this is Porter's value chain of activities, and each of these activities are adding value to deliver a product or service to a client. These are primary. We have a different grouping of, they're called secondary, and they're really support activities in an organization. One could be like information technology. I'm not going to have a different IT staff. And I don't like that. I'm going to knock it off right here. But I think information systems is a better word. Technology, or usually we're talking about the pieces and the parts and the infrastructure. We're talking about systems that we put together that includes applications and processes. So that's a better acronym for that. Information systems, or human resources. I don't have a different human resources department for each one of my functional operations. Finance and accounting. That's a business. Any business you can imagine, that's how they're organized. Now it could be your mom and pop shop, little Petrovini on the corner. they operate exactly the same way. It might be one person doing all those things, but that's what's going on. And they might do it with a sheet of paper. I've been into some of these Pepper meetings and I'm watching them do their order. And this little old lady, right? She got a little pen out and her little pad out and she's like writing down, this is what she's gonna go get from the market the next morning to put on the shelves. So this is not saying anything about technology. This is just saying something about process. And you, when you go into the world, if now or in the future, you think about the technology and you think about applying it using this model. And I didn't think about this model until I was probably 20 years out of college. And you don't need to use the model. Of course, you can figure it out intuitively. If you're running around every day with a piece of paper and you're writing down the list of things to buy, and then like by the third time you did that, you said, you know what? It's the same friggin' list all the time, just sometimes it's quantity 1, sometimes it's quantity 3. So then you type it up on the computer next time, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you say, the next time you go around, you said 1, 2, and then I was like, write the whole word out, right? So you naturally and intuitively will apply technology to improve your own efficiency, just so you can get home faster and go to the pub and drink beer or whatever you want to do. But you, for your own motivation, you'll figure this stuff out. But and this is what, as I got into more and more complex business environments, and then I started to help clients out more, our teams did. This is back in the United States with my first company. I would break down our projects this way. And when we did this, we were much more effective at finding within these specialized areas how to help them solve their problems. An example of how this steers you away from doing stupid things, you find that Slack is a good secondary service. Slack is not good at these primary services. Why? Because in these primary services, SAP is a perfect example. They've already written the book on this. They know exactly or application development. If you're not using Asana or Notion or something similar to that, Trello, and for application development, project management, you're an idiot because they've already solved that problem. It would be like trying to go to somewhere you've never been and pulling out a map, with a big piece of paper map, not your Google map, yeah? It'd be like, well, what are you, dumb? Well, probably not dumb, you just probably haven't been informed that Google Maps exists, or there's a map on your phone, says Maps or whatever. But the point is that as we get smarter about differentiation and specialization, we find the right tool for the right problem. And we don't get lost in everything is good for everything. So here's just some numbers in terms of value. I just pulled up, this was 2017, I pulled out these numbers. So $7.6 trillion B2B globally. You don't even know what $1 trillion is, right? I mean, I've checked my bank account and I don't see any T's in there. So it's such a huge number, it's crazy. And we have to be careful too, not when we look at these big numbers, it just means there's a lot of opportunity there. And for any of you interested in starting businesses, you got to pick a specific thing to go after. I'll use your example of your company. You might think, who would start a ride-sharing company when Uber and Lyft has like conquered the world? And they said, yeah, but we're giving you a tour guide. And typically this is for, a higher end market, people who are traveling for business. And so there's a premium price available, blah, blah, blah. So here's somebody walking into what you would say is a crowded market, a huge multi-billion-dollar market globally. Their market is not multi-billion, but it could be a million globally or millions, but there's a niche to that. So we just need to break it down and find out what it is that we're going after. The other point here is that that's the B2B. And so now if you look at business process, the biggest bubble, now you go, wow, that's why Asana, Slack, Even Facebook. Facebook is writing contracts with businesses to help their employees collaborate. Microsoft bought LinkedIn. Why did Microsoft buy LinkedIn? Total HR play. Total HR. Why? Because how many of you are on LinkedIn? Some? You guys, okay? You guys that I can see? So LinkedIn has, it's just like Facebook, but professional data. It's a very rich, very accurate database of all of your employment history. My younger brother used to be a director of sales for LinkedIn in the United States. And on the back end, just like when you watch those total surveillance creepy videos, that's what LinkedIn is doing with all of us. Because it knows if this was your education and this has been your last 3 jobs, they know what you're going to go do next. It's like crazy. Now, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But with the probability theory, and this is the creepy part, you're probably going to go do that next. If I look at a successful CEO, I know what the last 4 jobs she had. Successful ones. And then I can also look at the unsuccessful ones. And so for the recruiting metrics, because I have so much data, and if you haven't taken a statistics class, you should, even online, go to Stanford and take one. We can predict with an incredible degree of accuracy, if we have enough data, almost anything. So these are the opportunities behind us, is all of this value proposition and all of these business processes that make up trillions of dollars of value globally, and all we want to do is just get our little piece of that. These slides can't be ignored, but I don't want you to like dwell on them, but I think the point is that, and I'll get this out of you later when you do your projects, you're forced to look at every little detail. Some people say, I'm not a detail person. And I'm going to tell you, if you want to get into business, you have to throw that off. You have to be, you're responsible for everything that happens in that business. Doesn't mean that you have to know every little detail, but you at least need to know where that particular thing is happening and why that particular thing is happening. And that you're managing that with some KPIs, key performance indicators. We'll talk about this stuff later, but this is just, I think the point in the chapter is just that you, as a business person, have to break out your business in a very logical, operational way, because when we talk about e-commerce, all we're talking about is automating. The information transfer from A to B, or the inclusion of maybe machine learning or artificial intelligence, or using a platform like Slack to help people collaborate. We're just trying to improve the communication between the departments, because we see that in the existing system, maybe there are problems, or maybe there's an opportunity. It's not always a problem. Maybe it's just simply an opportunity that if I could get this group in 3 different time zones to work more effectively together, maybe they're working in the morning when you're going to sleep, so that when you get up in the morning and you come into their Slack conversation, you can quickly see what those guys did. And if they're clever, at the end of the day, they will have said, summarized, we did these things, we need you to do that thing. And that's where you get this kind of around the sun global efficiency of teams working together. Network effect is, if I knit sweaters and I have one customer, I can knit you a sweater, and then I'm going to take that one back. That one's it's take too long to do. Let me just say the punchline of the story. The concept of the network effect is that the more people that join a network, the more valuable the network is. Shut no. Not everything operates like a network effect. Yeah. Some things, I was starting off with my knitting the sweater analogy, but that's not going to work so well. Application development is a good example. I can get 5 people to work together to develop an application. I can have one person develop an application, and it will take them 3 months. I can have 2 people work on the same application and I can bring that in to 4 months. And I have 4 people, 5 people, I can pull it down to probably 6 weeks, 6 or 8 weeks. I can add 8 more people and it will take me a year and a half. There's some systems that when you add more, you lose the economic return of a positive return. You get this diminishing return to markets. Even a conversation on Slack has a diminishing return. If it's 1 speaker and an audience, like this class, it could be you, 20, or it could be 1,000, doesn't matter. But as soon as we start having a requirement that we have interchange, then boom, it brings the class down to about 20 people, then effectively. When I went to university, in some of my classes, it was 300 or 400 people. We were not having a conversation. It was the professor, blah, 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 and get out and go take the test. And so that's an example that is not always the case. We talked about the value chains extensively. I'm not going to reintroduce SWOT, but we're going to go, you guys know SWOT, right?
Yes.
And, okay. And then these are just some attributes of international. We'll talk about this later. I think this is also in chapter 10 or 11, somewhere around social and international. We have legal challenges, cultural challenges. You know, I remember the group that got shot up in London for posting some pictures of Mohammed. You know, there's some very severe repercussions when we have cultural clashes that aren't simply your opinion versus my opinion, and sometimes even colors or positioning of products or even the types of products that can't be presented in some markets that can in others. We just have to be aware of that. So here's a summary of those things. So here's the homework. Just make sure that you get where we are. I want you to make sure that you play around with Slack a little bit and look for ways that it could help you, not just in this class, but maybe in other things. And I don't own any Slack stock. So I just want you to think about and be critical. So, he didn't like it. And he got to the end and said, I don't like it. You don't have to like it. I just want you to be critical, not cynical. Cynical says that's shit and you can't explain why it's shit. But critical is that's shit and it's for these 4 reasons. And part of it could be emotional. I just don't like it. But you have to be able to articulate it, you know, as much as possible. And again, this is back to the yin yang thing. I want you to be able to see both sides. As users, I want you to feel what it's like to have something pushed on you, and then to say, if I were in charge, I wouldn't do that. But what would you do? Because you can't do nothing. You have to do something. And there's a good chance I'm not going to be here next week. So if I'm not, I'm going to give you an assignment. I haven't thought about what it would be, but I probably will know in the next few days whether I'll be here or not. So, and the assignment will not require you to be here. If I'm not physically here, I'll have to do a makeup class. We don't have attendance requirements, but what I want to make sure is you get me for another class session in whatever format works for you, whether we pick another time or we have some online activity or whatever, but I don't want to, because I don't know if this is going to happen once or it might happen twice this semester.
Oh, do you mean not because of Corona, just because you would not be here?
Oh, no, exactly. Not Corona. No. No, yeah, good question. No, because I'll be going off working with some investors. Okay, so that's the plan for next week. So this one's pretty easy, but keep up. Go through the book and do the reading. Don't read every word. I mean, I wouldn't do that to you. But at least understand conceptually. And if you don't understand, then go. And maybe if the book doesn't help you, then go online. And really, I would watch at least 2 of those shows. Not in the next week, but during the semester. They're terribly entertaining. They'll scare the shit out of you. And at least, but these are documentaries. These aren't, somebody up here just doing a, clown show to get your attention. And so these are professors, these are engineers, these are ex-executives from Facebook, from LinkedIn, Roger McNamee. He was one of the creators of Palm. This is before we had smartphones, and he was one of the early investors and advisors of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. So I mean, these are really credible people who are saying, uh-oh, we need to be paying attention. Okay, that's all I got. You have any questions? Have a good week, or 2 weeks. Any questions from the gallery at home?
No. What show did you talk about?
The ones I put the links on.
Oh.
There were 5 of them, actually. A couple of them were books, but I put links to YouTube interviews with the author, usually like 45 minutes to an hour. But I found them to be very informative, the YouTube video. I read the books as well, but the interviews are fine.
One of them was the documentary on Netflix, which disappeared, no?
This is The Social Dilemma?
Yeah, the one.
Yeah, that's really good.
Oh.